Tonight on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 21st of May 2024. Roadmap to Progress. CBSL releases Sri Lanka's roadmap for financial literacy. Roadmap to address Sri Lanka's multidimensional vulnerabilities, says UNDP's resident representative to Sri Lanka. Catastrophe avoided. 4 Sri Lankan ISIS affiliates ready to carry out attack in India, nabbed in Gujarat. Suspects previously attached to National Tawheed Jamaat, reveals the Gujarat police. Experts highlight the need to tackle religious extremism island-wide.
So the first step towards this is to recommence the rehabilitation program that was disrupted by some radical NGOs that have filed cases.
Veiled in black. Iran mourns the deaths of President Raisi and top Iranian officials. Probe into helicopter crash that caused the deaths underway. Pelting down. Heavy downpours continue to inundate several parts of Sri Lanka. Rains to persist within the next 48 hours, says the Met Department.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබා දෙත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening, the central bank launched its publication Financial Literacy Roadmap of Sri Lanka 2024 to 2028 as a part of Sri Lanka's National Financial Inclusion Strategy. Speaking at the launch, the central bank governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said that the Financial Literacy Roadmap will establish a robust framework for financial literacy education to improve the financial behavior of Sri Lankans, particularly the youth. The United Nations Development Project's resident representative in Sri Lanka, Azusa Kubota, who also attended the event, highlighted that the Financial Literacy Roadmap will be influential in alleviating the multidimensional financial vulnerabilities faced by over 50% of the Sri Lankan population by fostering better financial literacy.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka today launched the Financial Literacy Roadmap of Sri Lanka for 2024 through 2028. The publication has been made available to the public on the Central Bank's official website.
Financial Literacy Roadmap has a well-thought-out policy framework which directs all the stakeholders to achieve 4 strategic priorities. The first strategic priority is improved coordination and harmonized content, which aims to strengthen the coordination between the stakeholders and to standardize the financial literacy content to be delivered by them. Second, improved positive financial behavior, which seeks to support Sri Lankans to transform their financial knowledge and skills to positive financial behavior. The third strategic priority, empowered and vigilant financial consumers. This aims to address a dire need of current financial environment in Sri Lanka with regard to the improving consumer protection. More importantly, the commitment of this initiative to create sustainable change is reflected through our fourth strategy, which is generational behavior change. This strategic priority focuses on improving financial capabilities of the youth and school children to ensure positive behavioral change in the future generation of Sri Lanka. On the operational front, the roadmap serves as guidance for all financial literacy service providers in Sri Lanka, offering direction to achieve such behavioral changes across all target groups. Thus, this roadmap not only provides direction and guidance to policymakers and financial literacy service providers, but also illuminates the hopes of our fellow Sri Lankans for a better and financially inclusive future.
This is a very much needed and timely initiative, as it has the potential to address several of the multi-dimensional challenges faced by the community today. As part of data from the Multidimensional Vulnerability Report recently launched by UNDP in collaboration with the Oxford University, shows that more than half of the Sri Lankans were reported to be multidimensionally vulnerable. To substantiate the MVI findings, I heard from the communities that often the lack of financial literacy amongst the borrowers, particularly women-headed households, contribute to their vulnerability. In the absence of basic financial literacy, they were often forced into poor financial decisions. Financial literacy has a strong role to play in alleviating the vulnerabilities faced by many of the people in the communities in Sri Lanka at this point in time. Therefore, UNDP is pleased to collaborate with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, extending our technical expertise to develop financial literacy-related modules, design an advocacy campaign for the financial literacy brand, and disseminate the content, particularly amongst young people and women. Financial inclusion is positioned prominently as an enabler of the Sustainable Development Goals, where it is featured as a target in 8 of the 17 goals. Therefore, advocating for higher financial literacy is another important facet in all of the UN's efforts for a more sustainable Sri Lanka.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
ජීවිතේ හැම තැනකදීම ස්මාර්ට් වෙන්න පොලිය විතරක් ගෙවාගෙන යන්න CDB Smart Draft.
Now, Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakun said the Criminal Investigation Department, the Terrorist Investigation Division and the intelligence authorities have launched a joint investigation into the 4 Sri Lankan members of the terrorist organization ISIS who were recently arrested in Ahmedabad. In a statement, the Gujarat police said the suspects were previously affiliated with the National Tawheed Jamaat, the organization which carried out the Easter Sunday attacks on the 21st of April 2019. Speaking in this regard, National Security Specialist Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who highlighted that there is community radicalization in Sri Lanka, stressed the need for broader measures to tackle religious extremism in Sri Lanka.
Responding to a tip-off received by the Gujarat police, the anti-terrorism squad of Gujarat arrested 4 Sri Lankan nationals reported to be active members of the proscribed terrorist organization ISIS at the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport in Ahmedabad on Sunday. The arrested suspects were Muhammad Nusrat, a 33-year-old resident of Negombo, and Muhammad Nafran, a 27-year-old resident of Colombo 14, 35-year-old Muhammad Faris from Maligawatta, and Muhammad Rasdeen, a 43-year-old resident of Colombo 14.
According to the information we received, it was reported that they would arrive in Ahmedabad on the 18th or 19th of May by plane or rail. Accordingly, we prepared a strategic team and checked all the train and air service registers coming from the southern region. All of them were reported to be coming from Chennai to Ahmedabad by Indigo Airlines flight 6E848, and we confirmed the same information from Colombo. They were arrested by the anti-terrorist force and the authorities at the Ahmedabad airport as planned.
According to the Gujarat police, the interrogation of the suspects revealed that their handler is named Abu Pakistani. The suspects have further revealed that Abu Pakistani had informed them that he will share photos of the weapons along with the location such weapons have been concealed. Based on the information recovered from a mobile phone of one of the suspects, a team of the Gujarat anti-terrorism squad immediately left for the Nana Chiloda area near Ahmedabad, where a special search operation was carried out with the suspects on site. During the search operation carried out in the area, 3 pistols and 1 black flag were found in a pink parcel. The Gujarat police stated that 2 pistols out of the 3 had 7 rounds each in their attached magazines, while the remaining pistol had 6 rounds in its attached magazine. Accordingly, a total of 20 rounds of ammunition were recovered along with the 3 pistols. The investigating authorities added that the ammunition seems to have been manufactured in the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas of Pakistan. The case pertaining to these suspects has been registered under the provisions of India's Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the Indian Penal Code and the Arms Act.
Abu encouraged them to carry out a terror attack in India. They were so radicalized that they also agreed to commit a suicide bombing. Pakistani resident Abu also gave them 400,000 rupees in Sri Lankan currency.
The Gujarat police also claimed that the suspects were previously affiliated with the National Tawheed Jamaat, which carried out the Easter Sunday attacks on the 21st of April 2019. When inquired about this incident from the Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakun, he had this to say.
A joint investigation pertaining to the incident has been launched by the Criminal Investigation Department, the Terrorist Investigation Division and the intelligence authorities. A discussion was held this morning and they have been instructed to take steps accordingly. I am unable to disclose further information at this moment.
Taking this situation into account, National Security Specialist Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who spoke to Ada Derana, highlighted the necessity of more broader measures to tackle religious extremism spreading across Sri Lankan society.
The 4 Sri Lankan terrorists arrested in India in the state of Gujarat were planning to attack both Indian nationals and foreign nationals. They want to attack Israeli Jews, Hindus and Christians. This demonstrates that the threat of religious extremism in Sri Lanka is continuing. That is, after Easter Sunday attack, the measures taken by the Sri Lankan government to control, contain, isolate the threat has not been successful. It is so important for all the countries in the region to work together to fight this menace of religious extremism. Because if religious extremism is not adequately addressed, then this terrorist threat will be a persistent threat to Sri Lanka. Not only Sri Lankans will mount attacks inside Sri Lanka, but overseas. So the first step towards this is to recommence the rehabilitation program that was disrupted by some radical NGOs that have filed cases. Second is that they must have a community engagement program where the Muslims of Sri Lanka visit the Buddhist temples, Hindu shrines, Christian churches, and people from these other religious groups visit the mosques and they build a friendship. But if that is not being done, religious extremism will grow in this country, and this country will become like another country where there are frequent terrorist attacks. And what is important to realize is that there is currently community radicalization. If we need to mitigate the threat, there has to be programs where Muslim organizations such as ACJU actively mobilize their clerics and promote moderation, toleration and coexistence. This terrorist threat only the police can't handle by arresting people who are going to commit attacks. This extremism is coming because the religious space has not been protected. Government and the religious leaders must promote what you call moderate form of Islam and very tolerant form of Islam, and an Islam that values coexistence. But unfortunately, after Easter Sunday attack, people started to speak about conspiracy theories that this attack is conducted by India, by the Americans, by the Israelis. One MP said the Israelis have conducted the Easter Sunday attack. So all this nonsense must stop, and they must really address the religious extremism that is in the country.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs slammed the claims of genocide in Sri Lanka expressed by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The minister added that Canada's disproportionate focus on Sri Lanka is a clear example of double standards. Issuing a statement on the 18th of May, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said 2 years ago Canada's Parliament unanimously voted to recognize 18th of May as Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day, and added that they will always advocate for justice and accountability for the crimes committed during the conflict as well as for the hardships faced by all in Sri Lanka. While highlighting that Canada is a strong defender of human rights in Sri Lanka, the Canadian Prime Minister said his country continues to urge the government of Sri Lanka to respect freedom of religion, belief and pluralism, essential values to build lasting peace. Further, the Canadian Prime Minister invited Canadians to join in honouring the victims of the armed conflict in Sri Lanka. However, in response to the statement of the Canadian Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that they reject the false allegation of a so-called genocide in Sri Lanka. While highlighting that the government of Sri Lanka in all previous communications has categorically refuted such outrageous allegations of genocide in Sri Lanka, the Foreign Ministry stated that no competent authority in Canada or elsewhere in the world has made any objective determination of genocide having taken place in Sri Lanka. The statement added that Prime Minister Trudeau's endorsement of this false narrative of genocide in Sri Lanka is highly disruptive of communal harmony among the Canadians of Sri Lankan origin, a valuable community of Sri Lankan heritage living overseas. It is stated that many of those peace-loving citizens have constructively engaged with Sri Lanka and that Sri Lanka welcomed their support. The Foreign Ministry noted that all communities suffered in the brutal acts of terror of the LTTE and added that a partisan narrative ignores the complex reality of the Sri Lankan conflict, and as such, these comments by Prime Minister Trudeau resonate adversely among Sri Lankans and disrupts the Sri Lankan government's ongoing efforts towards national unity, reconciliation and progress in Sri Lanka. The Foreign Ministry urged the Canadian government to assume responsibility in a spirit of mutual respect in promoting peace and harmony. The ministry added that on a related but separate front, Canada's disproportionate focus on Sri Lanka is a clear example of double standards. The ministry stated stated that it is crucial that countries like Canada, who claim to be global advocates of human rights, recognize their self-interested double standards which are resulting in increased polarizations in the international community. The Department of Meteorology forecasts that heavy rains will occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa, northwestern, central and southern provinces during the upcoming 48 hours. As the adverse weather patterns continue to persist, the Puttlam district remained the most severely affected so far.
As heavy rains continue to persist throughout the day today due to the active southwestern monsoon conditions, the Puttlam district remained the most severely affected. Despite the inclement weather patterns, all schools in the Puttlam district are expected to be open tomorrow. Issuing a statement in that regard, the Ministry of Education refuted reports circulating on social media claiming that all schools island-wide will be closed tomorrow. The department stated that a decision to close schools has been left to the discretion of the provincial education secretaries and provincial education directors considering the existing weather patterns in the areas. The Irrigation Department meanwhile said that the water level of the river Nilvala saw a slight rise at the Panadugam area in Mathura this evening. The department also added that the Kalu, Nilvala and the Attanagalu rivers are also under the risk of overflowing. Additionally, the Department of Irrigation noted that the water level of the Baddagama water gauge in the Ging River read 3.9 feet this evening. Meanwhile, the torrential rains also resulted in the increase of the water levels of several reservoirs. Accordingly, 6 sluice gates of the Rajangane Reservoir were opened. The 2 sluice gates of the Angamur Reservoir continue to remain open today as well. Similarly, 1 sluice gate of the Kukuleganga Reservoir was also opened in view of the current heavy rains. With the prevailing adverse weather conditions, the Uyanwata River has also started to overflow. Subsequently, the Natural Hazards Early Warning Centre of the Meteorological Department issued a warning level 1 red advisory for heavy rains tomorrow. Accordingly, naval and fishing communities are advised not to venture into the sea areas extending from Colombo to Potterville via Galle and Hambantota until further notice. The Met Department further forecasts that heavy rains are likely to occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, northwestern, southern and northern provinces during the next 48 hours. As the inclement weather patterns continue, the Disaster Management Centre stated that a total of 35,357 in 11 districts remain affected. Currently, 7,323 families have reportedly been affected by the weather conditions. Taking the current inclement weather patterns into consideration, the National Building Research Organisation issued landslide warnings to several districts. Accordingly, warning level 2 amber landslide warnings were issued to areas in the Colombo, Kalutara and Ratnapura districts, while warning level 1 yellow landslide warnings were issued to several areas in the Badulla, Colombo, Galle, Gampaha, Kalutara, Kandy, Kegol, Kurunagala and Ratnapura districts.
Former State Minister Derana, who was named as a suspect in the legal matter surrounding the acquisition of a diplomatic passport by filing fraudulent documents, has been released on bail after appearing before the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court. Yesterday, the Criminal Investigation Department submitted a report to the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court, making the former State Minister a suspect in the pending legal matter on the acquirement of a diplomatic passport through fraudulent means. Colombo Chief Magistrate Tilina Gamage ordered the CID to take relevant measures on the case and report back. Today, former State Minister Derana Gamage filed a motion through her attorneys and appeared before the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court. Due to the lack of evidence in the case, Colombo Chief Magistrate Tilina Gamage ordered that the suspect be released on bail of 500,000 rupees and 2 surety bonds of 10 million rupees each. The funeral of Iran's late president, Dr. Ibrahim Raisi, commenced today in the Iranian city of Tabriz with thousands of mourners in attendance. Sri Lanka also observed a day of mourning today in commemoration of the Iranian president, while Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri is slated to leave the island tonight in order to attend the funeral.
Iranian President Dr. Ibrahim Raisi was confirmed dead early yesterday morning after the charred wreck of his helicopter was discovered in northwestern Iran. The crash also resulted in the death of Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian as well as all the other occupants of the helicopter. Although reports suggest that the craft crashed into a mountain peak, the definitive cause of the incident has not been established as yet. The Iranian government has launched an investigation into the incident, which Russia has pledged to support. In the wake of the tragedy, the Iranian government declared a 5-day national mourning period starting yesterday. The funeral commenced today at the Iranian city of Tabriz with thousands of mourners in attendance. Afterwards, the remains were taken to the Iranian capital of Tehran. The final rites of the late president and the other deceased are to be performed in Raisi's hometown of Mashhad on the 23rd of May. The United Nations Security Council observed a moment of silence in commemoration of President Raisi amid objection from Israel. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin stated that the United States did not have any part in the incident.
The United States had no part to play in that crash, and that's a fact, plain and simple.
The U.S. State Department, meanwhile, has revealed that the Iranian government contacted the United States in the wake of the crash and requested support.
We were asked for assistance by the Iranian government. We did make clear to them that we would offer assistance as we would do in response to any request by a foreign government in this sort of situation, and ultimately we were not able to provide that assistance.
Iran is slated to hold its presidential elections on the 28th of June. In the meantime, Iran's first vice president, Mohammad Mokhbar, will temporarily assume presidential duties.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said that the Sri Lankan High Commissioner in Singapore is discussing with the Singaporean financial institutes on the possibility to reduce remittance charges of Sri Lankan migrant workers when remitting money over to Sri Lanka. In a statement, the ministry said the measures have been taken following an awareness program held recently to educate Sri Lankan migrant workers in Singapore on matters related to foreign remittances and foreign currency accounts. The ministry said during the program, the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka in Singapore, Senara Dissanayake, acknowledged the contribution of the migrant workers and added that the High Commission has learnt about the issues faced by Sri Lankan workers in Singapore due to the higher service charges of remittance agencies and banks. The Foreign Affairs Ministry, issuing a statement, said that following the program, the High Commission is now having discussions with Singaporean banks and remittance agencies to explore the possibilities of sending remittances to Sri Lanka subject to lower rates. Sri Lanka's National Consumer Price Index inflation has edged up 2.7% year-on-year in April from 2.5% in March. According to the Census and Statistics Department, the increase was mainly contributed by the inflation of the non-food prices during the month. On a monthly basis, the year-on-year inflation of the food group decreased in April 2024 to 3.3% from 5% in March 2024, and the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group increased to 2.3% from 0.7%. The month-on-month change was contributed by a decrease in food items of 0.6% and in non-food items of 0.29% respectively. The Export Development Board says that Sri Lanka has recorded a total export value of $1.11 billion for the month of April this year. This value marks a decrease from 1.25% compared to the corresponding period of 2023. From the total exports of $1.1 billion, the merchandise exports for the month amounted to $813.81 million, down 4.1% from a year earlier, while the estimated value of service exports for the month stood at $300.41 million, increasing 19.28% from a year earlier. Cumulative merchandise exports during the period of January to April 2024 increased by 3.55% to $3.9 billion compared to the corresponding period in 2023. The estimated value of service exports is expected to increase by 6.47% to $1.4 billion during the period of January to April 2024 when compared to the corresponding period of 2023. Among exports to the top 10 export markets of Sri Lanka, the United Kingdom, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, France and China have shown a positive growth in both April 2024 and during the cumulative period from January to April 2024 compared to the corresponding period in 2023, while exports to the USA have shown a decrease. Exports to the European Union, which accounted for 24% of Sri Lanka's exports during both April 2024 and the cumulative period of January to April 2024, increased respectively by 7.36% and 3.58%. Now the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in red today with market turnover crossing 1.3 billion rupees. The benchmark all-share price index settled at 12,216.97 points after gaining 0.15%, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 gained 0.15% rather, to close at 3,608.71 points. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in John Keel's Holdings, Lanka IOC and Hema's Holdings, while mixed interest was observed in Brown's Investments, Sampath Bank and also LOLC Finance. Capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the sector index gained 0.28%. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.